Okay, so special edition today. My special guest today is the one and only Nancy Andrews. All right. She is a four-time bodybuilding world champion. She is the former president of the WNBF, and she also was the former promoter of the Northeast Classic, Monster Mash, Spring Mania, the Natural Mania Pro Universe, you name it, she's been there. I wanted to have her on today. I wanted to be able to speak with her, have her speak to the audience, and we're going to talk a little bit about, her shows, the transition out of those shows over to, people like me and Bonnie. So we're going to cover a bunch of things today, but to start off, I think the main thing we want to know is what was that deciding factor? When did you realize that it was maybe time in your head, in your mind, to move on from promoting?
Mm. It was a tough decision. I don't think there was like one thing that happened that I said, all right, that's it. It was just over time, the different, things that were happening in the industry, things that were happening in my personal life, things that were happening with my family, things that were happening with my business that is my livelihood,
Yeah.
my family's business. So there were a lot of things happening, and then COVID came. So COVID kind of like, even pre-COVID, I was thinking like, I don't know how much longer I want to do this.
Which,
My
hold
kids
on,
are,
not to
yeah,
interrupt, but how long were you promoting for?
I started promoting in 1995.
Okay.
So, that had been, I was, 20 over 20, 25 years into it.
Okay.
So basically, when I started competing, I started promoting the next year. I had only competed for 1 year, and the person that got me into the sport, who was Chris Moran, of Fit Tech in
Bit,
Southborough, Mass.
bit tech. Yep.
Yeah, he's a legend.
Yeah, I know
He was
about that.
way ahead of his time. I have to give him that, and he's still doing this stuff. But he wanted to promote, and he was like, "Oh, this would be great. We'll do it together." Because he was not really the type of person to go around and talk to everyone. So back then, because there was no internet, most of the way that you connected with people was you either went to their gym and worked out and met people in the gym, or you went to shows and met people at shows. And then, you became friendly, and we actually called each other on the phone to talk.
Yeah.
No email,
Yeah.
no texting, none of that. So it was just a totally different era, but that wasn't his thing. So he had asked me to promote with him, but really he was the one that wanted to promote and had this idea. And the first one that we did was a novice only show. And the Jack Rabbit, Tracy Rabbit, was in it.
She was in the first one.
The very first one that was
Holy
non-sanctioned.
shit, I
Yeah.
did not
And
know
then the
that.
next year we went to a sanction with the AMBC, which was a big organization, and most of the OCB came from the AMBC.
Gotcha.
So yeah, so like some of the photos I shared with you, the black and whites,
Yeah, yeah,
those were
yeah.
from AMBC.
Gotcha.
Bob Gormley, he was the owner of it. So prior to COVID, I did have some thoughts of like, oh, this, because it was getting to be a lot, because what I felt like was happening in the WNBF in the United States was that adding new promoters, the most successful way was that I was the co-promoter. And it was a good model. We added some shows and they did well. And, eventually the people would go on their own, or that was the goal of it. But the idea of doing that on the entire East Coast, going to Florida, going to all these different states, it was a little bit like, how am I going to manage this time wise? And time became an issue, because anyone who has kids know, like, when your kids are little, they're much easier. They don't require as much driving around and going to
Yeah.
things. And, as my kids were getting older and getting more involved in activities, I was having more demands of take me here, take me there. And, we have a lot of people that help us, and my husband is great and he helps out too. But still, you still have those things that you have to be at, or you have to bring your child to, or whatever. And that's, you wanted a lot of the stuff you want to go to, you want to be part of their life
Yeah, you
and
don't
part
want
of
to
their
miss
activity.
that. Yeah.
No, because there's no do-overs there. When they're off to college and gone and then adults, you're not going to have that experience. So I had thought about it, but I didn't really talk to Tina and Bob that much about it. It just started to become a thought where my business was becoming much more demanding of my time. My shows are now becoming more demanding of my time. And then my children and my family were becoming more demanding of my time. So when COVID came, the world slowed down for a year,
Yeah,
and
that
we
was,
really had time to think.
yeah, yeah,
So, I did spend a lot of time thinking about, like, how long am I going to want to do this? And if I do this for 5 more years or 10 more years, right? So that's 2020. If I do it to 2025, 2030, if I go to 2030, both of my kids are out of high school. If I do that the whole time, and am I really going to be able to move the sport with the amount of time that I have? And I knew the answer was no, because I don't want to give up all these other things. Plus, with my family business being more active, I have less time already to do stuff like I should be working on that. And I knew that I wasn't going to be really able to grow it a lot over the 10 years. I could maintain the business. I mean, maintaining is easier, but even with maintaining, the times have changed. The competition has changed. All the people in the industry have changed. So now, what I did 10 years ago to promote, if I were not already established, that wouldn't work today. Everything's advanced and everything's become a lot quicker pace, and the expectations of a competitor, what they want from it. And, if you talk to me and Dwayne Broadway,
yeah,
our wants for competing were very simple. Like,
yes,
we always laugh about it. Like, we would never ask some of the things that people would ask me when I was promoting. Like, before I compete, asking if I'm going to get a pro card. Like, what? Who cares? Like, just go and compete. Like,
yeah,
it just was a different world. So, but I knew the world was changing, and that was something that definitely was weighing on me a little bit, because I knew that for me to be able to make a positive impact on the industry, I needed to do more, not less. And then I went through, it's probably best to look at how can I get these shows, because really, my as much as I own the WNBF and the WNBF was important, what was most important to me was the natural bodybuilding community where I live and in my area. So I really wanted to make sure that those shows needed to be taken care of. They needed to stay in the area. They needed to be with somebody that was going to continue on promoting them naturally, promoting them drug tested, and give the people who live in this area an opportunity to compete at a high level. So that was super important to me. More than the other, I was more worried about my own shows than maybe like I promoted the Natural Mania. I knew that show could go on as an organization show and be fine. Also
plus you're
within
not, you don't live there.
no,
It's not your community, which
no,
sounds
no,
crazy because I'm technically in North Carolina promoting the Massachusetts shows, but for
yeah,
whatever reason, I've just adopted to Massachusetts.
yeah, right.
I feel like a
We
big
took you
attach
in.
yeah, I feel like a big
we
attachment to
we
that
took you
area.
in. And then the other part of it was that obviously Tina and Bob were my business partners, and their children now are in college, and they both were interested in being involved in the business. So as soon as Tina told me that, I was like, you know what? I mean, they've made a lot of sacrifices as a family to be part of this. And they also, much more than me, have, like, they really enjoy the travel and going to different places and meeting people, and their whole family goes when they go to do shows remotely. And that's my family doesn't want to be involved at, or never wanted to be involved at that level. I dragged my daughter to a lot of shows.
Yeah, Jamie was around for a little while.
Yeah, she was, but then, she got busy with her social life and
Yeah.
all her other stuff. But
So
she did,
their family does it a lot together, so it just
yeah,
made sense.
right, right. And so when their kids wanted to be involved, and I know the sacrifices they've made. I mean, they really were dedicated to developing the international portion, and they did a good job with that. And Tina does all the administrative stuff. So in fairness to them, I felt like, you know what, they were my partners for a long time. We did not see eye to eye on a lot of stuff, but the main stuff like the drug testing we did, um, I always had a good relationship, I would say, more with Tina, because that was the reason they were given the opportunity, was my friendship with Tina. I competed with her.
Yeah.
I helped them when they were starting their first show. Like, I had already been promoting for 5 years. And I helped them out a lot with their first shows, giving them stuff to do. And they were successful, and they do a really good job with their shows. But in fairness to them, I knew their kids really wanted to be part of this. And, obviously I could have sold or asked for what I paid for it. But I kind of felt like, you know what, they've been committed and it would be nice to give them the opportunity. So I gifted my shares to their children. People I know have said, like, that's crazy. Like, why did you do that? But I really feel good about it. I think it's good for the WNBF. I think that their children are a different generation, and if Bob and Tina are going to listen to any other opinion, probably their children have a pretty good chance of at least being heard and maybe making some changes. I think that their children are smart and they're hard workers. So I think Tyra and Bobby will do a good job, and I'm excited to see what they do. So that's how, that went down, and they got kind of, I felt good about it because I'm like, well, you know what? They're getting this, I'm giving them this opportunity. And now anything that they couldn't do because of me,
Yeah.
now they can do. It's their family. They can go and travel the world and expand how they want, and, do the things that are important to them without having to feel like they have to answer to me. So I felt good about that. And
Yeah.
then, obviously with my own shows, that was actually pretty easy. I knew you were interested in promoting. And I'm like, you know what? That would be perfect if Ryan took my shows, because I knew you'd be good at it, promoting. You have the passion. You believe in the drug testing. You were going to take them to another level, something that I couldn't do. And they would stay here.
Oh
And
yeah.
that was super, super important. So when we had the discussion, I was really psyched when you were like, really? Like, you think I can do this? I'm like, you absolutely can do this. So,
And also too with that I know it was a split, the ownership went, to
yeah.
WNBF and the shows did not stay with the WNBF, but in the same respect, that gave me a certain level of autonomy as well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the relationship there has been very up and down, and it wasn't consistent enough for me to believe in it. There's a lot of moving parts. This.
Yeah.
We're putting a lot of work into this.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't want anything like that looming over me as
No.
well. So I just felt like it was the better choice to kind of just take
Yeah.
the shows and try to start semi fresh, with where a place where you have a little bit more say in what can happen.
Right.
I can start pushing a lot of that technology because, again, like you said,
Right.
you're on the clock and I'm on the clock too, and I know I am. I know I'm always conscious of time, and Axel is 2.5. I mean, he looks like a 5-year-old, but he's 2.5, and I'm doing the mental calculations here of where we need to be. And I know that there's going to come a time where my time is not going to be as good. This is just like when I
Right.
started with coaching. Everything was very analog and manual, and I got hot in 2013, and I was like, wait a second. I'm spending so much time in my day building these programs this way. If
Mm-hmm.
this keeps growing in 4 or 5 years, I'm not going to be able to leave my desk. Like if I have to go to the
Right.
bathroom, I'm going to be
Right.
behind. So
Right.
that's why I was like, software.
Right.
I need software to make my coaching more efficient, more effective, don't sacrifice on creativity and be able to get all that time back. And I got it all back. And then I
Yeah.
keep finding more projects to suck up time, but that's where I'm at with these shows and the ANBF. That's why
Right.
software technology is I'm on the clock because I know
Right.
there will come that time and I'm gonna need to be able to manage things more efficiently on the go, dummy proof. So that's why
Right.
for me it's always replace things with machines and software. It's always
Right.
always been my outlet.
Well, so now this is the fourth sanction that those shows are under. They started as AMBC,
AMBC.
NGA because they found out I was doing AMBC and I had won the worlds, and I was told you can't do that. You
Oh, I
need to
did
be
not
because
know.
NGA used to qualify for WMBF. Yeah, everyone when I said, "Oh, it's gonna be NGA," they're like, "Oh, did you start your own federation?" They thought my middle name was with a G
Oh yeah,
because
wow.
NGA.
Yeah, yeah.
Nobody
Oh my God, yeah.
like national chip. Yeah, and then it was obviously IMBF, and then IMBF
What
WMBF.
about MASH? MASH was the same?
MASH was this no, MASH was never NGA because no, wait, let me think. No, MASH was never NGA. It was AMBC and CJ. I bought that from CJ Bouchard. He ran it up until probably he kept it NGA, and then when the IMBF started, he switched to IMBF
Okay.
because he was writing for the magazine too at the time, and he
Okay.
was in Connecticut. He was a really good promoter too. But but anyway, and then with the Spring Mania show, the whole basis of that show was that it was added because I was doing from 2014 on, I was doing Bonnie's transformation contests
Yeah.
with one of my shows. So I would do it with the Northeast Classic and with the Monster Mash, so twice a year. And then the spring one we made the Monster Mash 2 day, so we
Okay.
were able to handle her transformation. But with the spring, it was just too many people to handle. So for a couple of years, 2 years, I did the novice Northeast
I remember
Classic,
that.
which
Yep.
was awesome.
Yeah.
I was getting really good numbers at that, but I did the novice Northeast Classic. And then we ended up making the Spring Mania more so because there were not a lot of earlier shows in the IMBF. And we thought, you know what, let's just make it a regular show since we're having it. And then people can, it can be predominantly novice, but if we can give away a few pro cards in the
It
spring,
helps. Yeah.
people like that. And then they want to compete in the Northeast
Northeast
Classic
Classic. Yeah.
for the pro part. So, but choosing Bonnie for that was really easy because she had broken off after COVID. Actually, maybe it was like 23, 22, 23. She broke off to do her own event, a non-sanctioned. And, she did a great job, does a great job with it. But that in itself has challenges today because people are looking for more. And then when your show's non-sanctioned, they have nowhere to go. So I had talked to her about, you know what, Bonnie, you really should sanction it. And she thought I was asking her to promote a show for the WMBF, but actually I was asking her like, why don't you take my Spring Mania show? Because it just made more sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, and she's run shows that size. She's going to do a fantastic job,
Yeah.
with
And we have a pretty good working relationship. Like I've
yeah,
always, since we
yeah,
started talking, I've been very supportive of her. She's been
yeah,
there every step of the way. I try to
yeah.
keep
No,
her informed and in the loop.
she's brought more people into natural bodybuilding than anyone.
Anyone. Yep. I try to
I
tell people
don't think
that.
I
People don't
cannot
realize
think.
that. Yeah.
Oh no, no. I mean, her history is deep. It goes way back. I mean, she used to have small teams where she would do 15 people. She'd have a 15-person team. But what people didn't know at the same time, she was doing a 300-person body challenge with just weight loss.
Yeah.
So she's been handling a lot of people for a long time successfully. And when she went into the transformation part where they were going to compete, she's brought more people. She's made a ton of pros. I mean, she's got high level people. She's had 2 world champions under her, which is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
When you look at the volume she's doing, it's crazy.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's
So
so if you're looking at, we'll start with Bonnie. If you're looking at Bonnie, what what do you think that standout characteristic was for you to choose Bonnie for Spring Mania? Like, what was it?
Well, I've had a long, long, long relationship with Bonnie. I mean, Bonnie qualified as a WNBF pro at one of my shows. Um, she did my posing classes. She did, I've known her a long time. I think I kind of, my friend owned Gold's Gym in Worcester, and I made her basically move to Worcester and start working there because they needed someone like her. And I knew she had a lot to give to the sport, and she's really knowledgeable and, a really good personality. But in terms of a promoter, I know that she's always focused on the competitor and the client, and she wants the high level. So she was a pretty easy choice just because I know she values the drug testing. She wants to be fair. She wants to have good competition, and she wants them to have fun.
Yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah,
she gets it that not everyone's there for the pro card.
yeah.
A win does not always mean a pro card. A win for some people is just stepping on stage.
Having a
And
good time. Yep.
yeah, yeah.
Being
And
part of something.
she's always been um aware of that, and that's important to her, and that may be more important to her than the pro card,
Yeah,
because the pro cards will come if you keep going and you keep working hard and you keep doing the right things, and get the right coaching. And for most people eventually it's going to come,
yeah,
if that's your goal. But I knew she would be good just based on that and her ability to kind of get a lot of people involved and feel like they're part of something pretty special.
yeah. All right. So, what is that one characteristic for the rough around the edges person from New York to take over the Massachusetts shows?
Well, you were, I think what people see may not be the whole picture. You have to act a certain way in certain situations because of what's going on, or because of the environment you're in. But I think overall, like, you're organized, you're cutting edge. I mean, when you started coming to my shows with the robot, people are like, what the hell is this? Like,
Yeah.
what is going on?
I
And then
remember,
everyone knew the robot. Oh, we
yeah.
got Grant here.
Yeah, and
Grant
then
goes
I
crazy.
remember this one. I remember this one time I had the computer set up, so I'm watching the stage, and some lady comes over to us. This is when we're in the cafeteria, and I think it was North in the cafeteria. And someone comes in our circle and is like sitting at my laptop and like touching the computer. I'm like, lady, what are you doing?
What are you doing?
What are you doing? She's like, I'm watching the show. I'm like, no, you can't be here. And then she tried to complain to one of the expediters, and they're like, no, that's not the events. That's his
Yeah,
own. That's his.
yeah,
He built that
right,
himself. But
right. But more so than that, Ryan, you do have a lot of passion for the sport, and you want to be the best
always.
at
I think it's genetic.
everything. So, with well, but with that kind of drive, I knew that you would take it to another level.
All right. All right. So these are tough ones now. Which
Mhm.
one would you label as your favorite show? Northeast Classic or Monster Mash?
Mm, huh.
That's a rough one.
I know they're both good for different reasons. Um, I'd have to say my favorite is the Monster Mash, even though it was not my first one.
Yeah.
Just because of the time of year and the level of competition.
Yeah. Which we want to try to shift that culture a little bit, but no matter what, it'll still kind of always been ingrained. And
Mm,
I agree with you, like MASH. That's why when we made the announcement that I was taking the shows, I did
yeah,
a video based on Monster Mash, yet Northeast Classic was first. Not that it was
yeah.
an afterthought, but it was like MASH has always been it. But I'm going to be honest,
Mhm.
like doing all this and going through all this work and seeing the blues, that I wanted that drastic contrast, the blues and the
Yeah,
oranges. Going through it, I have fallen more in love with the Northeast Classic. I have a lot of great memories there too. But yeah,
yeah.
if I'm picking one is my favorite, it's like nothing against the Northeast Classic. I love it. I want it to be highly successful, but MASH is, I don't know. It's just MASH was always wild.
Yeah, it's definitely has a reputation of being a top level competition. Most people it was the last stop before Worlds. So they
Hmm.
were using that as like, let me get on stage. I have a few weeks and I'll make my final touches. We've
Yeah,
had
if you knew if you
international,
got rocked there, you were gonna have a problem at Worlds.
most likely.
Yeah,
Most likely. I mean, the one thing some people did drop out because they saw who else they had to go against.
yeah,
So they're like, I'm going against them again in 2 weeks. Like, but the Northeast Classic, you know, depending on where Worlds is, holds its own as a pro show. A lot of, I would say now, kind of the competitors have shifted. It used to be you could still do spring, like the spring season would have super competitive and people that were not gonna or not gonna do Worlds, didn't matter, would do it just for fun, and they would come and compete, and you'd get a mix. Now I would say more the spring pro shows, you're getting the people that qualified the year before.
yeah,
So you don't get a lot of veterans that come out in the spring now. They usually wait. There's more shows in the fall, but if they're going to do the worlds or going to do a championship show, it's usually in the fall. But I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. Time, things change. So
yeah. Most,
after they see all the stuff you're giving out, they may want to do the spring.
um, maybe not most because you've been through it so much longer, but maybe one of your favorite moments at each show, and I'll follow up with
Mm.
with mine. Just the, obviously you don't want to like leave anyone out, but something that just comes to mind as like a big moment at each of those shows.
I mean, there were a lot of different people's wins that were exciting and fun to be a part of. Obviously, for my own um, uh, relationships with people, the Northeast Classic, Bonnie LaFrac won her pro card.
Yeah.
So that was kind of cool. Like she was competing pretty actively against Lori Coe.
Hmm.
And Lori Coe was who I used to train with. I used to work out with. She was like a college student.
Yeah.
And, she went to my gym and she took my classes. Then we became friends and I trained with her and she won at the Northeast Classic. And then Bonnie won the next year, which was really kind of cool to see those two because they competed against each other quite a bit. So that was cool. Rick Silverman qualified at the Northeast Classic. Vic Kazupi. I mean, there's so many people that are,
Yeah.
judging and involved in the sport that
That ran through
went through
there.
that show. There was one cool, really cool at Kathy Savage had, huge, huge teams. And she wasn't a big, you know, her whole team wasn't coming to my event, but some of them did come because she was big into the Fitness America at that time. Um, so she had the show on MTV about I want to be a competitor or whatever, and there was a woman that worked for MTV, Alicia Marie, and what she was like, she looked like a model. When she came, everyone was like, "Oh my God, who is that?"
Huh.
She won.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, she like easily won. Everyone was like, "She's not from around here."
And
She
what
was
year was
way
that?
That was probably, oh God, that had to be maybe like 2003, 2004 in that time
Yeah,
frame.
I wasn't even in yet.
No, no, but you can look her up. I think she lives in Hollywood now and she does all kinds of cool stuff. Alicia Marie.
Gotcha.
Yep. But yeah, so I mean there's been lots, and with Monster Mash, there's a lot of things happen there. I have to say, for me, I still am really good friends. One of my best friends is Tracy Rabbit, but the Rabbit always made the Monster Mash really excited from like
Yeah.
2011
Oh
until
yeah.
she stopped competing. I mean, she won a lot there. And she always made it very competitive and very fun in every
And very
category.
interesting.
Oh yeah. Yep. The backstage was always really interesting. So, yeah, definitely the rabbit. Like when I think of Monster Mash, if I had to think of one competitor, it's the rabbit. So when
Yeah.
you put her on your poster, I'm like, that is classic. And Tisha won a lot there
Yeah.
too, but
Yeah.
he might not be as much fun backstage as the rabbit. She used to bring cookies for everyone too.
Yeah. I
So, I
remember.
mean, that was pretty good. And then another at the Monster Mash, there was one other thing that was, that I'll never forget. So Melissa Kelly was a pro in figure, and she had been judging for us for a number of years. And her husband ended up getting a brain tumor, um, diagnosed and died within the year
Damn.
or about a year. Yeah, it was really bad. And she was like at her prime competing during that. And his name's Kevin Kelly, great guy. But he was so into her competing. He knew everyone. He knew every single person in the industry. Like I had gone out with them and, he's like, oh, what about this person? What about that person? Like really into it. Great guy, and unfortunately gets that diagnosis. And Melissa couldn't go to Worlds because he was so sick. So she did the Monster Mash and did bodybuilding because she had the pro card and fit body and figure.
Hmm.
And she got the bodybuilding pro card and
Oh,
she
wow.
got to do the routine. She got to do a full routine and she obviously dedicated it to her husband. And he was there. He was at the show and he passed away the next spring, the
Oh, wow.
later. Yeah. So
Oof.
that was one that I'll never forget because her intentions,
Yeah.
for doing it. Yep.
For me, I still think that the first Northeast Classic it's the one, it set everything in motion. It set my whole trajectory. I didn't want to
Yep.
go. I didn't want to travel for shows.
Massachusetts.
I was like, I stuck to New York. I was like, I don't want to do this. But I had to because we finally got a pro. We won
Hmm.
pro at the Hercules, Tyrone Robinson. We needed a pro show. So we're looking. It's like, okay, looks like we're going to Massachusetts. I dreaded
Yeah.
it the whole time. Got there and I was like, wow, there's a whole bunch of different people here. It's the first time I saw Erin Duggan as she was
Oh,
expediting. Yep, she
yeah.
was expediting. And I'm
She
looking
was a good
around. Yeah,
competitor.
I looked around and it's just like, who's this? This guy over here with this big team, Rolando. Who's this? Bonnie. Okay. Who's this? That's why I bumped into Bill Murphy. And I was like, who is
Yeah.
this? Who is this guy? Okay. Because
Yeah.
Bill Murphy, in New York, I was basically doing whatever I wanted to. When I
Yeah.
went to Massachusetts, I bumped into Bill. I didn't
Hmm.
like get to know him yet, but I'm like, who is this guy? And
Right.
Bill at that time was making me feel smaller because I'm like, wait, this guy's the man here. And this
Yeah.
guy has everything that I want. And it sparked something in me.
Yeah.
And that's also where I bumped into Heather Drake. Just by
Yeah.
sheer coincidence, bumped into her, talked to her, ended up coaching her, got a world title. That world
Yeah.
title led to all these girls loving Heather Drake. And one of those girls who loved Heather Drake was this girl, Nora Connolly from Long
Yeah.
Island. Joined the team because of Heather Drake. And then Nora talked to her. One of her friends was like, you got to come over to this team. It's
Yeah.
great. My coach is great. That person, Shauna Kohler.
I know. It's unbelievable.
It's like
The
that
circle.
set my whole, that one event, 2013 Northeast Classic.
Hmm.
And when Shauna says all the time, she's like, think of that. Like the show you went to.
Crazy.
Now we met, we have a kid, we're married, and now you're taking on that show. It's just I'll
Right.
never forget that. And in the first show that she did in WMBF when we brought her over was the Northeast Classic.
Right.
It's crazy. For Monster Mash, oh, there's a lot of memories at Monster Mash. Rabbit
You
driving
had
me
some
absolutely, yeah,
sweets.
yeah, Rabbit driving me crazy all the time. But I really did like Shauna's overall win. That first one was very magical. That whole year was just like a
Yeah.
whirlwind. But that 2018 was pretty wild. We won
Yeah.
5 pro cards. Then on pro day, we won 5 pro classes. Shauna won that overall. And then the
Yeah.
next day, Leah won the overall and NPC. It was like that whole weekend was like,
Yeah.
okay, this is the top. Like it's never
Right.
getting better than this. So
Yeah.
everything else is going to seem like a failure.
Right.
So I really did like that. But
Well,
this
you know
this
what? Just like I tell the competitors, the stuff that you do at these events, like what you're going to take away more so than the trophies, the work is the friendships and the
yeah.
relationships that you have with people that you've met through the sport that are become part of your life. more so than just on show day.
You know
They're,
who the first person I heard say that was? Charlie.
yeah,
Charlie used to say that in his own way,
yeah,
in his Charlie way. Charlie used
yeah,
to say that at the shows,
yeah.
and
Use people got to talk to each other.
yeah. So Charlie used to say that, and I've heard that, especially when I was younger.
Yeah.
I used to hear that, and I'd be like,
I try
"Oh,
to
this."
remind people of that because today people are so
Hmm.
focused on a pro card. I mean, we've had people that have never competed and they're asking me about a pro card. It's like, wait a second.
Yeah,
We
you
need
need
to
to.
take this down about 20 notches
Yep.
because that's the least of your worries right
Yeah.
now.
But I remember hearing that. I remember at first thinking like, "Oh, that's so cliche. Blah blah. It's all bullshit." But
Mm,
then, like I said, like you said, what did I went to one show.
yeah.
I went to one show and it changed the whole trajectory of my life. So,
Well, Ryan, I met my husband. He was a promoter,
oh yeah, that's what I'm saying.
AAU.
Yeah.
He
Oh yeah,
promoted
yeah.
the AAU.
So
Yeah, I did a show 1995. There you go.
when you say something like that, it really isn't a lie. It's not. At first,
No.
it's like, some people. I'm more like, I don't know. I don't want to say negative, but I'm more like, okay, whatever, whatever.
Yeah, just
But
let's get this done.
yeah, but in the same sense, it's like I lived that out where,
Yeah,
the people that you meet, I met my wife, my kid
right.
through that one show. It's
Mm.
crazy how that stuff works. All right.
I
So,
remember Janet talking about Shauna before Shauna competed, telling me like, "Oh, wait till you see this girl Ryan has,"
yeah. And that was the thing too. It's
because
like,
Janet was posing.
yeah, it's like I had a couple of bikini. Remember Sam Murtaugh?
Yep.
But yeah, so I had a couple of bikini girls, but it was more of like, I don't know what was going on. Then I really
Yeah.
wanted to focus on it, but I'm like, I don't know what I'm looking for. Shauna joined the team and we went to one of those group things with Janet
Yeah.
and
Janet Marsico.
yeah, yeah, once Janet was posing with her, but then once Shauna started posing, I was like, that's what I want. That's bikini. That's what
Mm-hmm.
I want my bikini competitors to like. That's the blueprint right there. It like
Yeah.
clicked for me, like right there.
Right.
It was it was good. Yeah, I remember
Well, and bikinis changed a lot.
yeah.
I mean, even if you look at Leah, when Leah Hervey won in 14, which was the first year we had it at Worlds, she won again in 15. She won again in 16. If you look at her 16 body, she does not look at
No.
all like she looked in 14.
Yeah.
If she looked like 14, she wouldn't have won.
Yeah. And that's the thing. There was a
It got
there was
more
some
athletic.
yeah, there was some talk about Leah. And I was like, know what? When we're coming in 16, she's gonna be undeniable. And then she won that figure pro card, and everyone's like, wow, she's got slices in her legs. And I'm like, we are going all the way with this girl. And
Yeah.
I loved that run for Leah in 16. And
Yeah.
then she left or well, went in a different direction. She went to
Hmm.
and we moved Shauna right into the slot. And it was like,
Yep.
let's keep this going. We had a
Yeah.
lot of good matchups with Julie, a lot of good matchups later on that, with Fitness Asylum, obviously. And then later on, the feud and the wars with Kara, which
Yeah.
was wild.
Yeah. I mean, but between Cara, Bonnie, and Julie
Julie, yep.
Chaplot all have great bikini competitors.
That's why I
So you're
felt the
you're
North.
you're go when you have competition that's that deep, you can't be missing anything
Yeah.
because yeah.
That's
So
why I say
I
that
mean, you
Northeast
guys all push
bikini.
each other
Yeah, the Northeast
because
Nancy Andrews bikini
yeah,
division stands out because of those,
people.
yeah, that
Yeah.
history of people
No,
going
and
at
then
each
you
other's
had
throats.
Rolando.
Yep.
Rolando's always had good bikini gals coming in, and then you have other coaches that maybe don't have as many, but there's quite a few very, very good
Yeah, Blondin
bikini.
always threw a bomb in there too.
Yeah, he did. Yep.
Yeah.
Jenna George usually had a few. Bill I mean, went from being just a bodybuilding coach to coaching bikini, Bill
Yeah.
Murphy. So, I mean, there's just a lot of really good coaches and a lot of people that are very educated in the sport. So the classes tend to be deeper,
Yeah. Yeah.
but that's what makes it exciting. When you win, you really win. You really feel good about it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I call it that was the black and blue region. Like you got beat up there. Like you needed
Yeah.
to really get through there. There was no easy wins at those shows. That's when I hear
No,
other coaches talk about these numbers of pro cards. It's like I never saw you in the black and blue region.
no.
You weren't getting
Uh,
that stuff
you,
over here.
Ryan, you'll crack up. One of Linda Murray's lines is that the competitors from cold weather states tend to do better. I like how she calls it. Oh, the cold weather states all they're they're used to a different level. They do better.
Yeah.
There are a
Um,
lot of good people from cold weather
yeah,
states.
they definitely are.
Yeah,
If we're
we're
going,
inside more.
yeah, it increases that motivation. Um, if we were going to close, let's close with what do you hope to see moving forward with, these shows?
Mm.
Obviously, two different promoters, okay? Two different promoters spread over three shows, different personalities, different approaches, but overall, what do you hope to see with these shows?
Well, obviously, the drug testing part of it was always really important to me. So I want to continue to see people in this region doing it naturally and embracing that because I know long term that the stuff they learn from competing is going to help them just in life and being a better person. So once they leave the sport, you learn so much about nutrition, about training, about
Discipline.
longevity, discipline. What are you going to do? So those things that I were important for me to teach people through the shows. I'm hoping that that's going to still continue. The drug testing has to be there. You have to be strict on it. And I hope that opportunities open up for the natural athletes because today it is much more competitive in the promoting world. So, when I started, there were a handful of other people that had shows. There weren't shows every single weekend in my region. Now there's a lot of shows all over the place. So you can start in, I don't know what month, March, and basically find a show within 100 miles every weekend,
Yeah,
whether it's tested, non tested, whatever. I'd love to see some consolidation
me too.
where we would have something to make these wins more meaningful and to make the opportunities be available for natural athletes. And we talk about that a lot. And in 2016, I had really hoped it would work out when the OCB came over and came with the WNBF that, if that had continued, it would be a lot bigger here in the US under one banner. With the way that it is now, it's spread out. But I am hoping over the next 10 years, we see some consolidation so that, competitors can get the prize money they deserve. Competitors can get sponsorships and recognition for what they're achieving. And it's a lot of work, but I do think it can happen. And you have people in the head positions now that certain ones are going to be willing to work towards that or would like to see that. I think it benefits the whole industry and it benefits all the competitors. And basically, we're all doing this to give the competitors an opportunity to be able to better themselves and to be able to push themselves and to be able to, for some people, it's giving them an opportunity for a career. So it would be nice if there was a little consolidation.
I agree. That's one of my
Yeah.
goals is
Yeah.
to start to thin it out. That's why
Yeah.
everyone's like, "Oh, Ryan's going to start his own thing." It's like, "No, no, no, no. I don't want to start my own
No.
thing and start something new." Like I think, I needed to find a host. I found one. I'm happy. I know it is a little bit of an uphill battle, but
Mm-hmm.
I found my spot and I'm going to try to carve my way. And I do think that I'm not going to say names, there are some organizations out there that maybe past their time.
Mm-hmm.
I think
Yeah.
that for the benefit of the sport itself, they need to make a logical, decision. But not
Right.
everyone likes to hear that type of stuff.
Well, that's kind of, just if you look at the age of some promoters, um, some of them have not stayed up with the times and are out of touch. And, the younger generation is going to be coming in what they want, how they want to get it, that's changing too. But I think that you're doing a lot of really cool stuff for the show that I'm really excited to see. I saw the big reveal today, which was
Oh
pretty
yeah.
awesome.
Oh yeah.
I don't know where, if Tracy won that belt, imagine the free
Oh,
food she'd be
she'd get
getting.
everything. They give her the
She'd
building.
get everything. She would have all the free food. She'd have free wine too.
Yeah.
Um, but anyway, you've really upped it with that. And I know that you and Bonnie are both going to do a good job. And it's going to be a momentum. Like you're going to continue going, and hopefully there's going to be other people that want to be part of it. You already have some new people that want to be part of it,
Yeah.
and in terms of promoters, but you're not going to take on the United States, the whole world, all in one year.
I know. I
It
know.
takes time to build it, and you will. And if you consolidate and you're with someone else, you're with someone else. But you're doing all the right things in a positive way for the industry and for the athletes and for the sport. So
All right. I appreciate that. Yeah, I
yeah,
just got to stay on.
yeah,
I got to stay on focus. My focus
yeah,
again is the shows, building the ANBF, and trying to force the moving pieces that leads to that consolidation. There has been, I always hear everyone's talking about, oh my God, there's so much changing in the landscape of this year. And it's like, all right, let's logically look. Why are those things changing? There are
yeah,
probably two people who have led to a lot of those changes.
yeah,
And it's these two people right here.
yeah.
You know, you made the decision to retire. It's not like you were forced out. You wanted to
No,
because you said but that movement right there set off a chain reaction. And
right.
it's,
It gave opportunities to other people that totally deserve the opportunities.
yeah, because I
That
couldn't promote in
maybe
Massachusetts,
Right.
with,
That maybe wouldn't have done, maybe you wouldn't have done this if I were promoting, just because you're like, out of respect for me, we're friends, you're not going to do it. But it's time. It's time. The world's ready for you, Ryan.
I hope so.
The other thing too with the AMBF that I wanted to mention that's a little bit different, and I do think Kent, um, I I Kent, one year when I was promoting, I believe it was the Natural Mania. It was when I was still in Manhattan at Murray Bergstrom. And for some reason, Kent must have known somebody or whatever. He came to one of my shows that I was promoting. And I had, seen him at different things, but I never really talked to him. And he came down, right down to the front, and oh, excuse me, I'd like to talk to you.
Yep, in
And
Kent form.
introduces himself. Yep, yep. No, super polite, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
wanted to introduce himself and said he, really was excited to watch the show. I didn't even know he was coming. And he knew some of the judges, and I had introduced him to Bill Murphy and Jimmy
Ja
Champion.
Janet.
Janet
Yeah,
Janet was there. Yeah.
yeah.
Well, Janet knew him. They knew each other. And so they were there, and I was like, oh, he's a nice guy. I think everyone who meets him agrees, like he's a good guy. I do think he's tried to run his organization to cater to all the athletes, which is tough. You're never going to make everyone happy, but I think he really tries to
I
make
know.
everybody happy.
I know.
That's really important to him. And but in the process, he ended up competing down the road, and all my interaction with him had been super professional. So when you were going with him, I was like, you know what, these guys together can do something. And even welcoming the pros, I do think that that's going a long way. Like someone like Aaron Orton, in his neck of the woods, there's many pros from different federations. The idea that if you have a pro card in OCB, or you have a pro card in WMBF, or whatever you have your pro card in, you still get the opportunity. You don't have to go back to amateur. I know that that means a lot to a lot of people. I understand why the organizations don't take the other people's cards, but knowing the way Kent is, there's no way Kent wouldn't, because he
Yeah,
values the status of being a pro more than others.
Yeah, he does. He's very adamant
Yeah,
about that stuff, and I'm in agreement. I'm in
yeah,
agreement,
yeah,
and he has been really good to work with. He is very
yeah.
passionate about this. No one has anything negative to say about him. They all
No.
know that he is behind the sport and he'll go anywhere, compete everywhere. I lose track of him where, it's like I lose
Yes.
track of him sometimes where he's at, but he'll go everywhere.
Yeah.
And people like that.
Yeah.
People like that. I think he balances me out
Yeah. No,
well.
he's passionate. You know, he's passionate and he's really trying to give people a good day and make them feel good about themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So that was good. That was good. Very
Yeah.
informative. I hope everyone takes a lot from that. I feel like this has been wanting to do this for a while. I'm glad we got the
Yeah.
opportunity to do this. We got to speak
Right.
about a lot of different topics here, and
I can talk a lot, Ryan.
I mean, everyone's gonna want to listen to it, so it doesn't
Yeah.
matter. This is good. I really appreciate it. I appreciate the
Yep.
opportunities you've given me. Bonnie. I appreciate the insights, the mentorship, just the focus that you give me sometimes with some of the stuff that I'm not good at. I
Right.
don't have a certain level of experience, and like
Yeah.
all these locations and this person and this play. You know all the players. I
Yeah.
thought I knew all the players until I talked to you, and then it's like I still have
Yeah.
a good amount to learn. But I do appreciate everything.
Well, I'm looking forward to it, Ryan.
I better
It's
see
going
you
to
at the
be a
class.
good year.
I better see you at the classic.
Yes, I will be there.
All right.
Thanks. Thanks for having me on.
All right. Take care.
Okay.